Good morning and welcome back to the Ventures of Macananthia. As you can probably guess from the title, this morning we're going to be fitting a safe to a motorhome. This is our motorhome. This is a Hobby 600. It's made up of the Fiat Ducati 2.8 JTD chassis cab with an Alco chassis and has hobby coachwork. Doesn't really matter what type of motorhome you've got when it comes to fitting the safe. It's basically the same rules apply. So let's get inside and get started. So after much thought, I decided that the best place to put the safe is actually underneath this seating area here. The reason being is it's got full access to the bottom floor. This has twin floors for insulation and all the pipes and wires and everything run underneath it. But this goes through to the first level of the floor. So what I can do is I can actually drill through that floor to fix the safe and actually put a metal plate on the underside of the motorhome to add extra strength. So the next step was to find an actual safe that would fit in this hole. There was one that was considerably smaller, which obviously weren't going to fill the hole. I could have made an adapter plate, but it meant I wouldn't be able to get my laptop inside it. So I ended up getting one that was going to be slightly bigger, which meant I'd have to trim the hole probably to about here, about 2 centimetres there, and probably just square off these little corners to get it in. So I ordered it online, I got it, and I tried it. It looked like I was going to have to take this pipe out temporarily to shoehorn it in, which was no biggie. But then also I noticed then the door wasn't hinging on the side that I thought it was. I thought it would hinge on this side of the safe, so that by the time the safe door reached here, it would be clearing, which it would have done, you know, with no problem. But the trouble is it didn't. It hinged on a different side, and I'll show you that now. So I'll go across to the other seating area, and as you can see, instead of this safe hinging here, and therefore would have cleared, it hinges at the back here. Now, to get my laptop on here, I can't get it in straight, I have to put it in diagonally, so I must have the door fully open. So for that reason, the other side isn't an option, and we're going to have to put the safe in on this side. So, if you look here, we can only get it really centre in here, which is a lot of wasted space, especially in a motorhome. You want to save as much space obviously as you can. You don't want to be throwing away space, because at a later date you may want to use it for something else. So I'm thinking we've probably got to trim a little bit of this wood here, just so the safe clears what looks to be a bit of chassis there. But before I do that, I'm going to get underneath and check that actually when I do put the bolts through the bottom, it's not going to come out where the chassis is. We need it to come out near the floor. Now, I don't know if you can see it on this video, but down the side of that piece of chassis or whatever it's there's a little bit of daylight. So I'm going to poke a little bit of wire through that, crawl off underneath and see actually where it comes out to give me some sort of bearing on where we are on the underside of the motorhome. So I'll have a look at that and then I'll bring you back in. Okay, so I've had a call underneath the motorhome, and unfortunately that's not going to work for us either. This bar you can see here, this is the original chassis from the chassis cab of the Fiat Ducato, and the point where it actually joins the Alco motorhome chassis. So unfortunately, whereas I would like to have got this safe right up against this and tight into this corner to give us maximum space at this end, that's not going to happen. So we're going to have a rethink again. Okay, so I've tried several options. I've had Anthea down here for a sort of a second opinion, and we've finally decided on this. We've tried it all ways round, but we decided on this way because it's hinged that way, which means we get access from this direction, and we haven't got the table in the way here, so that was the best way. We've decided to bring it all the way forward, so we don't at least have a forward, you know, area of space behind that we can use in the future. And we're going to put it right to this edge here, because even though it's going to interfere with this, these are basically crap. These are bedside tables, and then I'll just see if I can. They're bedside tables for when this is made into a bed, and they make this door flimsy. I was planning on getting rid of this anyway, and turning them into sort of little shoe cupboards that we could put dirty shoes in. I'll still have the one on the other side. You see, it's just rubbish. So on the whole, I'm pretty happy with this motorhome, but the Ministry of Crap Design has certainly had a hand in some parts of it, and this is one of them. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is there's a little bit of wood sort of under here. I'll remove that so I can get the safe fully forwards up to here for maximum space, and also if it's tight there, it's not going to have loads of crap dropping in between it. And I'm going to put a pilot hole through one of the holes with a really small drill bit and get underneath to make sure there's no pipes or cables in the way. And then we'll get to making the support plate, which is going to be the same size as the safe that I'm going to bolt in underneath. Okay, so I've removed this piece of wood off of the back of here down below, so that we can get the safe fully up this way. I think what I'm also going to do is I'm going to cut a large rectangle plate and draw around the safe and cut the centre out of it, which will be the backing plate for underneath. But also I think I'm going to make the plate a little bit wider to make a frame to go around the safe, which will block these little gaps up the side and stop crap from dropping down into there and into the back there. But it'll also stop people from getting a jimmy, a crowbar in and trying to prise the safe out. Just a little bit of added security, and also make it a lot easier to keep clean down the sides of the safe. Okay then, so I'm going to take the safe out, I'll take it back up to the house, and I'll bring you back in when I've got the piece of steel plate out and cut. Okay, so I've got a sheet of steel out. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut a section off the end. I'll put a piece of bar on with some clamps here to make sure I get a nice straight edge with the disc cutter. So I'll cut that, make another cut again to make a rectangle, and then I'll bring you back in. Okay, so we've got our square of steel cut out. In a minute I'm going to put the safe on top. I'll draw around the safe and I'll cut the centre out. Now normally I'd do all the filing at the end, but I'm thinking if I cut the centre out, I'm only going to have a really thin frame all the way around, and I think when I try and file it and grind it back, it's going to start flexing and moving around. So I think on this occasion I'm just going to file and shape and grind the outsides of the rectangle first before I cut the centre out. So there we have it. We've got the outer frame made on here. This will slide all the way down when I fit it in the motorhome, just to tidy up the edges. There we go. And I have the plate underneath, on the inside. And if you can see the holes in the bottom there, I've gone around there with a pencil to mark it, so I should drill the holes in the plate, and then we'll be ready for spraying. Okay, so that's the panels all folded down and prepped, cleaned up with Dissolve Bente and sprayed with primer. I've used rattle cans because it's just not a big enough area to warrant getting all the compressor set up and all the gun out and then all the cleaning and paint mixing that's involved in that. Just not worth it to do such small areas. So I'm going to let them dry and give them a couple of hours, and then I'll go over the top with some black gloss. Okay, so that's the panels finished and painted and glossed. It's the next day now. I left them overnight to dry. I brought them in overnight just so the night damp power didn't dull the gloss on them. This plate that's going underneath the motorhome, I did a lot more antioxidant primer on that, but a bit less gloss on top, and the reverse was on the inside panel, purely because obviously this panel is going underneath. It's going to be exposed to the wet and the weather, so it needs a bit of a stronger barrier against the weather. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll get these down to the motorhome and we'll start offering them up and see if we've got our measurements right. There we go, there's the safe in. You can see the steel plate all the way around the sides. That seals out all the little gaps that will be round here and so that things can drop down and rubbish can drop down, but you can't get down with a hoover nozzle. Stops all that rubbish going down there. It also stops anybody with a bar getting a bar in there and be able to lever it out. Not that I think they'd try, but certainly an extra precaution. So that's that all done, and that just slips up nicely over the edge here as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'll open up the safe. I'll mark the holes that have got to be drilled through the floor, and then I'll have the whole lot out again and drill the holes ready for the final fix. Okay, so that's the holes drilled, the safe back in, and the bolts back in, ready for me to crawl underneath and put the big plate on. Just going to say, really impressed with the quality of this motorhome. I tried to put these bolts through, which are 40mm long, the threads, and they were a centimetre too short to even get through the floor. So that floor, the lower floor, is 50mm thick. So yeah, pretty impressed. Okay, there you have it, job done. Safe's in, bolted through the floor. The big plate has been bolted up from the underside and also glued. I've used nylock, so even if somebody manages to get under there and start undoing the nuts, which is highly unlikely, they'll only spin without a spanner on the inside of the safe to hold them, so that's not an issue. This plate's been glued all the way round and into place as well. I took the opportunity to seal that bit of chassis there where there's a little hole for creepy crawlers could get in, so I did that as well. So that's all done, which is a great relief, because you know, in the past you're worrying about going out and leaving your valuables in the motorhome while you're out. Say for instance when you go out for a meal, if you take it all with you, you don't want to leave it next to your chair in case someone swipes it, so you put it under the table, and then you're worrying about, are you going to leave it under the table and forget it there. So it's a bit of relief having this safe just to keep you know, the laptop in, the action cameras, the DSLR, you know, quite valuable stuff you don't really want to lose. I think it's going to be safe in there, because to be honest, the people who are breaking into motorhomes are opportunist thieves. They want to break in, grab what they can get off the work surfaces and out the cupboards, and then get out quick. So they're not master criminals. So I think that's more than adequate to keep our valuables safe. So that's one less job on the list. I'm going to leave the tools down here. I've got some little bits and pieces to do over here. These seat belts are a pain in the backside, so I'm going to cut some little holes around here so they can slip through into the locker below when they're not in use, because we rarely use them. And I'm also going to put a little bit of Velcro across here. There's already some stitched to the cushion, so that the cushion doesn't slip away from the wall constantly, because that's a pain in the arse as well. So, but that's more or less enough. The big job's done here. The last big job, I suppose, before we go away, is going to be a new skylight here. Not something that I would normally make a video about, because it's quite straightforward, but this isn't going to be straightforward. I'm going to put a skylight in with an electric fan, where the cover actually adjusts with the rain. If it rains, it closes itself, and it works by remote control to try and get some cooler air over us on the bed at night. The problem we've got is I've bought the largest electric fan skylight I can get, but it's still considerably smaller than the actual hole that's going to be left when we move this one. So I'm going to have to make some sort of adapter plate, or come up with some sort of other idea. So I will make a video on that. Okay, so before we conclude this video, just going to mention a few things you should take into consideration when fitting the safe to a motorhome. Okay, so number one, you need to take the time to seriously think where you're going to position your safe. It needs to be out of sight. You know, you don't want people to be walking into the motorhome and you can see where the safe is. Secondly, you probably want to be avoiding really obvious places, like, you know, in the bottom of the wardrobe. But again, on the other hand, it needs to be easily accessible for you. You don't want to have to start dismantling the bed and getting under the bed when you want to get to the safe, or end up having to be a contortionist, twist yourself around to actually get in and get to the door. So you have got to find a balance between hidden but accessible. Sounds easy in theory, but isn't. Okay, second consideration I think is quite important is how securely you could get the safe actually bolted into the motorhome. If motorhomes are sort of 20 to 25 years old and less, usually have twin floors. Now the bottom floor, as you saw in my video, was 50 millimeters thick, but the subfloor above is only about 15 millimeters thick. So a serious consideration when bolting it through the floor is find a section of the motorhome where the outer floor, the lower floor between the ground and the motorhome, is exposed. You should find it probably in about 2 or 3 places in your motorhome where that is exposed. And obviously this is the best place to fit your safe. Okay, so sort of third thing, you've decided where you're going to fit your safe. You need to make sure, you know, you can fully open the door. You know, obviously really, but not always. You could bolt it in, and realize you can't fully open the door to get all your kit in. So that's one consideration. Also, you've got to be careful that you're not going to block any access to future things like pipes, wires. There's a few little hatches in my motorhome which gives us accessibility to sender units for grey tanks and water tanks. So you don't want to bolt it in such a place that if you need to do maintenance in the future, you need to take the safe out. Okay. Another serious consideration you really need to, don't get carried away. Take the time to make sure wherever you're drilling or cutting, there's no pipes or wires in the way. Take your time, think about it, and thoroughly check that wherever you're going to drill or saw, there's no cables, no pipes, nothing that you could do damage to. With my safe, I don't know if I mentioned it in the video now, but I put a very small drill bit through the floor and crawled underneath the motorhome to make sure that there was no pipes or wires in the way. So super careful on that one, please. Okay, just one. The final point I think is definitely worthy of mention is take the time to get the correct safe. Everything you think you want to put into the safe, you should probably put on your kitchen table, pile it all up together, get a tape measure out and measure it. Almost certainly there's probably going to be some sort of compromise between the size of safe you want and the size of safe you can actually fit. Like with most things in life, it's going to be a compromise. So, I mean, at the start I was thinking probably I wasn't going to be able to get my laptop in there, but I was going to get all my other kit in. It's not ideal, but a laptop is fairly easy to hide. You know, it's narrow, you can slide it into things, you know, so you could hide that quite well. As it happens, you know, I did manage to get a big enough safe in, and I can just about get my laptop in it diagonally. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit like and subscribe. Just want to say a little extra about subscribing. It costs you nothing. I've noticed we've got a lot of people, return viewers, coming back to the channel, but who are not subscribing. It really helps us out, and I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button. Okay, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.